Well, welcome everybody to this training session on starting and growing your mailing list. My name's Lucy Rycroft, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm a writer and a blogger. And 3 years ago, I had no idea what a mailing list was. I didn't know why I needed a mailing list. Once I sort of begrudgingly worked out that I probably did need a mailing list, I wasn't sure anyone was going to open or read my emails. And I just really didn't kind of understand the point of it. I didn't see what it was going to achieve, I suppose. And I've gone from that point 3 years ago to where I am now with a growing mailing list, a decent open rate, lots of engagement. And I can honestly say that I really love my mailing list. I love my subscribers to bits. It's so fun writing to them. It's lovely to meet like-minded people. It's lovely to create that connection with them. And yes, I'm selling books and other products through my mailing list as well. So if you have a small business, or if you are a writer or a blogger and you want to create engagement around what you do, maybe you want to sell a book or a product, then a mailing list is a really good way to do that. So tonight we're going to be looking at 4 kind of main sort of sections of the journey for mailing lists. I'm going to be sharing with you a lot of the mistakes I've made over the last 3 years, as well as all the things I've learned as well. So hopefully you can do this a lot quicker than the time it's taken me. But this is roughly, I think, the 4 stages of getting going with your mailing list. First of all, think. Some of you might be in this stage at the moment. It's good to think before we do anything new. So we're going to be looking at why set up a mailing list. Will it be effective? Is it going to be worth my time? And then once you've decided that it will be, you have to start. You have to actually pin your colours to the mast and go for it. So we're going to be looking at how do I choose an email provider, how do I set up my list, and how do I link my list to my website. Then we're going to be moving on to build. So you've got your list set up, maybe you've started to amass a few subscribers, you've sent a few emails, but now we want to know things like, well, how do I attract more people to my list? What's a lead magnet, what's a welcome sequence, and why do I need those? And what the heck do I write in my emails? I've got this list, what do I say to them? And then finally, the last stage is grow. So once you've got your mailing list set up and you're growing a little bit, you've got a few subscribers and you've been sending emails, we want to look at the long term. How do we keep subscribers engaged over a period of years? How do we find new subscribers? And what about those dreaded unsubscribes that we all hate to see pop into our inbox? So I hope that you can see yourself in one of those 4 sections as we begin this evening. And I want to encourage you that if you're in one of the later sections, don't switch off for the first part of the evening, because I think sometimes there are foundational steps which we've missed out through no fault of our own, just because we weren't sure how to go about it. I certainly missed out a lot of the foundational steps when I set up my mailing list, because I didn't know all this stuff. I needed somebody to guide me through it. And no one was around. So this is why I'm doing tonight's session, to hopefully be that person who can guide you through a bit. So, you may pick up some things from the earlier stages. And likewise, if you're in the earlier stages, some of the stuff later on will be of interest to you, because then you can see where you're going with it and you can see the point to all that you're doing now, even if some of it feels a little bit mundane or boring. So let's start off with thinking. Why set up a mailing list? And you may already know why it's a good idea, but I'm going to run through it anyway. Your mailing list is the only platform that you own. You can control what you send and when you send it and how often you send it. If you compare that with your social media, which I imagine a lot of you are using for the projects that you're involved with, you can't control who sees your Facebook posts. With the best will in the world, you could be posting every hour, every minute of every day, and Facebook ultimately decides who sees those posts. Twitter decides who sees your tweets. And those algorithms that they set up, they change really regularly, sometimes weekly, and there's no way that we can keep up with that. So whilst it's good to have social media, whilst it's good to kind of expand your reach with social media, it can't be what you depend on if you want to build a sustainable business or writing or speaking ministry, because you just don't own those platforms. You don't know what's going to happen next week with Facebook. You can't rely on people seeing the posts that you put out there. a little illustration to show what I think the difference is between social media and a mailing list. If you go to a party, remember those? We used to go to parties, or in fact any social occasion, and you meet someone who you haven't met before. So maybe a friend introduces you to one of their friends and you get chatting. And even if you chat to that person for the whole night, you're only really going to scratch the surface of who they are and them to you. You're not really going to develop a deep level of trust just in one evening's chatting. And I think that social media is a bit like that party. Social media is the meeting people, it's the getting to know people on a surface level. But it's hard, and it takes a long, long time to build up trust on social media, partly for the reason I just mentioned, that people don't always see your posts. So you might be putting a lot of stuff out there, but actually from their point of view, they're not hearing from you very often. So it's very, very difficult to build that trust. However, if that person that you've met at the party then becomes somebody who you meet up with on a regular basis, then after a few months, you'll probably have built up that trust. You'll feel like you know them quite well, and they'll feel like they know you quite well, and you'll trust each other. And that's what we're doing with a mailing list. We're building up trust, we're building up community, and we're building that level of trust so that people know what we offer, they know what we write or what we produce or whatever it is that we're involved with. I know not all of you here tonight are writers, but whatever it is that you're involved with. And they come to really like what you do, so that when you're releasing a new product or book or blog post, those people are going to engage with that because they already know what you do. They know that they like you and they like what you produce, and they're going to be more engaged. So that's what we're doing with a mailing list. We're really trying to build community. Will a mailing list be effective? Somebody did ask me this in advance of tonight's session, and in the end she decided that it wasn't the session for her. She still needed some persuading. Sadly, I couldn't persuade her, but I did make her think. And she asked, I just don't know if it's going to be effective. People I know don't really open emails that just kind of come from a generic list. They all go into spam or promotions. Will it actually be effective? And it's a tricky question to answer because the answer is yes and no. But it all, I think, depends on what you write. I think emails are effective if you're writing things that people want to read. I don't think emails are effective when you are writing things people are not interested in. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that later. How do we engage our subscribers? How do we write stuff that's for them rather than just from our perspective? So we've done the thinking. Hopefully you're all here because you've sort of got through that stage and you've realised that even if you haven't started a mailing list, you want to. So how do we actually start? The first thing is, how do we choose an email provider? Now, there are loads of email providers out there, and there seem to be new ones popping up every week. I can't keep track of all of them, but I've done a little table with 5 kind of quite popular mailing list providers. And I've just done a kind of brief little comparison on a few different areas so that you can see how they compare, what they look like against each other. So MailChimp, if you look at that in the first column, that is one that people often start with because you can have up to 2,000 free subscribers. So it's a really good deal. For a lot of us, that's going to be the make or break. If you look along the row, you'll see that the number of subscribers goes down: 1,000 for ConvertKit or MailerLite, 500 for Aweber, and 0 for Flowdesk. But then you also have to take into account the cost after the free subscribers have come to an end. And again, you see they vary widely from £15 a month, sorry, these are dollars, $15 a month with MailerLite, right through to $49 with ConvertKit. So that's quite a difference there, quite a leap. I also need to say about mailing list providers is that you can go from one to the other. You can switch, and I haven't done it myself, but those who I know who have done it say it's usually fairly smooth. It's a bit like changing your gas or electricity supplier. So you give the word, and then the companies sort it out between themselves. So don't worry, don't feel that you're sort of locked in for life with whichever email provider you go for, because I think this can be a bit of a stumbling block, and it shouldn't be really. But you might want to give some thought to the future as well. Does the cost that you're paying per month increase with the number of subscribers? Yes, it does with MailChimp, ConvertKit and MailerLite, which is kind of fair enough because as your subscribers increase, you would hope to be making more money from your email list and therefore have some income to pay your email service provider. But with Aweber and Flowdesk, they don't. They don't penalise you for growing your list, which is a big advantage, I think, if you're planning to grow your list quite big. And then I've just at the bottom compared the cost for 10,000 subscribers. So again, in US dollars, you will see that there is a massive difference. So if you make it to 10,000 subscribers, this could really be the make or break. You'll see that Aweber, although we only had 500 free subscribers in the first place, they don't raise their costs from $16.15 a month. You'll still be paying that even if you've got 10,000 subscribers, which I think is an amazing deal personally. Right up to ConvertKit, $119 a month. I mean, the costs do rise quite steeply the more subscribers you have for MailChimp, ConvertKit and MailerLite. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a breakdown. But as I said, don't think too hard about it because you can always change at a later stage. There are some other features though you might want to be aware of. Most of these will probably not be an issue at the early stage of starting a mailing list, but I list them here in case they are. The number of audiences you can have. Most of us will just have one, but if you're doing two very different things, maybe you're a writer but you also have a small business and they're two different audiences, then you're going to want to set up two different mailing lists. The number of admins who can send emails, I think for most of us it's just us, but that might be a consideration. The number of emails you're allowed to send every month. Honestly, I've never seen a figure that comes anywhere close to the amount of emails I send a month. I send weekly emails, right? And like usually the limit of the number of emails is like into the hundreds, if not the thousands. So that's usually not going to be a problem for most of us. The level of customer support though could be an issue because MailChimp, which is what I use, yes, it's free up to 2,000 subscribers, but you don't get any personal customer support at that level. So if there's anything that you don't understand about MailChimp, it's a case of Googling it, finding a YouTube tutorial, finding a blog post that helps. I've not found it to be a problem, but if you like a personalised customer service, then maybe MailChimp would not be the ones to go for. And then, as I mentioned before, you can move between email providers, and it might be worth looking at whether your initial email provider that you go with, whether they offer free migration. In other words, when you move, if you choose to move to another email provider, are they going to charge you? That's probably quite important to look at. So you've made a decision, you've chosen your email provider. Now, how do I set up my list? Well, it's very easy to sign up for an account. You just go to the website of your chosen email provider and it will take you a few minutes to put in your details like signing up for anything. All I would say at this stage is just make sure that all the GDPR settings are switched on. They should be, because they should detect where you're from, but if they're not, make sure they're put on. Now, I'm told that now that Brexit has happened, we're into UK GDPR, which I think might be a bit different from EU GDPR. I don't know, but anyway, just put on all your GDPR settings. Don't take any risks, even if you're not in the EU or the UK, or either. It's still important because you might have subscribers in those countries as well. So I think it's just kind of belt and braces. It's just really good to be aware of that. Now, you've got your list, you've set up your mailing list, but how do you link it to your website? Most, if not all of you, will have a blog or a website, and you want visitors to your website to be able to sign up to your list. Don't worry, we're going to be looking at other ways to get subscribers later, apart from a website. So if you don't have a website, don't worry, that's coming. But this is my dashboard on MailChimp. I just thought I would show you. I can't show you every email provider, obviously, because I don't have them. I'm on MailChimp, but it will be very similar on others. So if I show you how to do it on MailChimp, you should know what you're looking for if you're on ConvertKit or MailerLite or one of the others. So this is my dashboard, and if you look over to the left-hand side, you see this little kind of magic wand, pencil type thing. And if you hover over that, it says Create. And when you click Create, you get this pop-up window. And if you scroll down on the left, you get to Sign Up Form. Okay, add a pop-up or embedded form to your website to collect subscribers. So that's the one you want to click. And then you get this window here, grow your audience with a sign-up form. And then it just says Begin at the bottom. Now you can choose 3 types of form here. You can choose an embedded form, a pop-up form, or a sign-up landing page, and I'm going to be talking in a minute about the difference between all of those. But just to say that when you click Begin, you'll get to a page where you can design your form, you can add fonts, change the size, the colour, add images, all that kind of thing. So it should be fairly straightforward, but that's what you're looking for. If you're not on MailChimp, look for something that says sign up forms or create sign up forms, that kind of thing. Okay, so here are the different types of sign up forms. So these are forms that you can have on your website to encourage people to sign up for what you're offering. Don't worry too much about the content of them for the moment. Again, we're going to look at that later on in this session, but just in terms of the type of forms, I'm sure you've seen all these types of forms before on websites that you visited, and you may have them on your own website as well. So the first type is called an embedded form. And this is any form that appears within a body of text on a website. So this is actually one of my blog posts, and you'll see this blue box in the middle, which kind of is inserted into the text, and it just gives people an opportunity to sign up for my mailing list. So that's called an embedded form. I'm sure you've seen those before on websites. Next we have pop-up forms. And these are I call them annoying, but actually they're really, really good for getting sign-ups to your mailing list, or they seem to be for me anyway. But they're the annoying ones that pop up when you go to a website and you just want to read something, and then you get this thing pop up. For that reason, I would always set them to pop up on exit from the site rather than entrance. Because if you click across to an article, imagine somebody coming to your website who doesn't know you from Adam. They come to your website, they want to read an article that they've seen linked on social media, and then suddenly this thing pops up in their face. Well, they're going to close it. You know, if they're anything like me, they'll close it without even reading it because they want to read the article, obviously. But if you have it popping up as they're about to leave, then they will be more inclined to at least read it and maybe even sign up because they've read your article and they liked your article and they'd quite like to hear a bit more about what you write or what you do. So a pop-up form is simply a separate window which pops up when you're on a website to invite you to subscribe. And as you'll see, the rest of my website here has gone this kind of teal colour, sort of faded into the background, so that the main thing you can see is this pop-up window. You need to either close it or subscribe in order to get rid of it. And then the last type of sign-up form, I'm going to talk about landing pages in a minute, but that's a little bit different. The last type of actual kind of form is called a top bar. Or you can have a form at the side of your website. I don't have one of those, but it operates in much the same way. And it's simply a bar at the top of your website, which again, people can either close or use to sign up to your website. So it's just this bar that kind of remains there until it gets closed or until somebody signs up. Just a very simple bar. I know you can't read all the wording, but that's not important at this stage. But that's another way that you could get people to sign up for your website. Now, a landing page is something quite different. It's another way that people can sign up for your mailing list, but it's a separate page with no other possible action other than to sign up for your list. So in other words, it's not hosted on your website or your blog, because if it were, then you would have all the menus at the top, you know, like you have on a website. It's a separate page, and I'll show you mine here. I've kind of put two screenshots together so you can see the whole thing, which is why we've got these two scroll bars at the right, so I'm sorry about that, it looks a bit odd. But this is my landing page for my website. So you can see that at the top I've got my logo and my tagline. I've got a very clear headline here that just kind of very succinctly describes something of what my email list is about. I've got an image of my lead magnet. We're going to talk later about lead magnets, so if you're totally confused at this point, don't worry, just take that out of your mind. You don't have to worry about lead magnets. But anyway, the photo of the thing, the image of the thing I'm going to offer people when they subscribe. And then just a one-sentence summary here of what's included. And then I've got a form here which is GDPR compliant, and I've got the clear and obvious sign up button at the bottom there, send me my printables, and that will sign people up to the list. Now, just a word about GDPR. I think often people overcomplicate it. And I've read and listened to quite a lot about GDPR. And there's two things I want to say. Firstly, GDPR was essentially set up to regulate large, like huge organisations like banks, like universities, like social media platforms. It's highly unlikely that anyone is going to come knocking at your door, you know, taking you to prison because of something you've done wrong on your website. You know, the GDPR enforcers are not particularly interested in small websites like ours. That doesn't mean that we don't try and be compliant, but it does mean that actually if we make a genuine mistake, it's not going to land us in loads of trouble. So please don't worry about that. But the second thing to say about GDPR is it doesn't need to be complicated. There are basically 3 things you need to do for GDPR. One is that you need to let people know clearly that they are signing up for emails. So you can't just say, oh, get my free thing. You've got to actually sort of indicate in your wording that they're signing up for emails. The second thing is that you need to let them know that they can unsubscribe at any time. And if you word it well, then you can kind of do those 2 in the same phrase. And the third thing is you need to link to your privacy policy so that if people are concerned, they can find out, a few more details about how you'll use their data. So that's all you really need. So I've kept it really, really short because long forms do put people off. I've just got email address and first name. I do know people who don't even ask for a first name. They just ask for an email address. I like to ask for a first name, firstly because I feel that it is nice to get some level of commitment from people who are joining my email list. And secondly, because I quite like to personalise my emails. And if you don't put a first name box in there, then when you say dear and then you want to put the name, there's just a space, so it doesn't really work very well. So I like to kind of have at least one name. I used to ask for surname as well, and I don't do that anymore because there's just no need. But email address and first name, I personally like to do that. But if you just want to collect email addresses, you can do that too. But the simpler, the shorter, the better. So that's a landing page. Now, you might at this stage be feeling a bit confused, which is absolutely fine because I've just basically thrown a load of information at you. And if all this is new, yes, it will be confusing. Some of you know all this, so you're not confused. But some of you are just, your head's about to explode. So don't worry at all. I would say if you are confused, just start with a landing page. Don't try and do all those forms at once. Definitely not. Just start with a landing page because I'll talk a bit more about that later. But that's the most important thing, really. Keep it simple and keep it clear. And then basically once you've set up a landing page, you get a link to that page, and that's what you can share everywhere. On your blog, in your blog posts, on your website, on your social media, in emails, everywhere. You've got a link then, and you can get people to sign up, and you don't need to worry about the forms. But you do need to probably have a long-term plan to get those forms in place on your website, because the more places that you have sign-up forms, the better. But yeah, just start with a landing page for the moment. And you can create a landing page with your email service provider. So I showed you that a couple of slides back. Remember this little window that we got to in MailChimp. All you would do is click on Sign Up Landing Page, and it will take you through how to design a landing page. And my landing page here was created in MailChimp. So you can do something that's quite, I think it's visually appealing. You can change all the colours of the fonts. You can have different font styles, you can add images, you can do all the sorts of things that you want to do on a landing page. So I think it's pretty good considering you're not paying any money for it. I think it's pretty good. But there are some alternatives. You can use your email provider like I've done, or you can use a plugin to your website. Now again, this will really vary depending on which hosting platform you use for your website. I use WordPress and I use MailChimp. So I use a plugin, and have done for a while, called MailChimp Forms for MailMunch. And I really like it because it's just really easy to use and I can do what I want to do with it. Now, if you have a look down here, I've got 3 forms set up. I've got an embedded form, a pop-up form and a top bar form. You've seen those before on a previous slide. If you look at how many subscribers have signed up using them, you'll see that a huge number, much more than embedded and top bar, have signed up through my pop-up. So that's quite useful to know that actually that pop-up window is proving quite effective for my email list. But if you look along the top here, you'll see that actually you can create a landing page in this plugin if you want. So you don't have to use your email service provider. So if you've got an email service provider that's just not doing very good landing pages, you can use this plugin instead. I prefer the one I get on MailChimp to the one in this plugin, but I have tried them both, so it's just a matter of trying out a couple of different things and seeing what you like the best. Okay, so that's a whistle-stop tour of starting your list. If a lot of that has been confusing or gone over your head, please don't worry. Remember, you're getting the video of this. You can replay it as many times as you want. But now we're moving on to building your list. So assuming you've got it set up, you've got a landing page so that you've got that lovely form that people will be able to use to sign up to your list. But how do I attract people to my list? How do I get them to sign up? Well, you need to offer them something they want, because an email address is a valuable commodity. People aren't going to just give it to you for nothing. Remember that if you're choosing to, or if you're wanting to grow an audience, in the proper sense, then you're not just looking at your friends and family members who will sign up because they like you. You're looking at people who are cold contacts, who have no vested interest in you or your business or how many books you sell. They don't care tuppence about that. So why are they going to give you their email address? Well, you do have to do something for them in order to get the email address. You have to give them something that they want. And this is called a lead magnet. You might have heard that phrase before. And there are different words that mean the same thing, different phrases. You might hear it called a freebie, an opt-in, a free download, a list incentive, any of those. It means the same thing, really. And what it is, very simply, is something that your ideal audience wants. So you have to have a bit of a think about who is my ideal audience, what kind of age are they, or maybe they're a range of ages, but what are their interests, what are they looking for? Are they working? Are they retired? What kind of work do they do? What kind of family status do they have? That kind of thing. Anything that's relevant to what you're writing. I'm a Christian parenting blogger, so my ideal audience is mid-30s Christian mum, because that's the person I'm talking to. That doesn't mean that I don't have Christian mums in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, who are also part of my list. I have quite a few Christian grandmas part of my list. I have quite a few children's workers from churches that are part of my list. But it streamlines what I'm offering if I know who I'm gearing it towards. And it means that what I write is consistent as well, so that my list grows in different demographics as well, because people know what they're going to get when they come to me, if that makes sense. So don't think that so I'm going a bit off topic here, but don't think by narrowing down your audience, your sort of ideal audience, you're going to exclude other people. You won't. It just means other people will get a much clearer idea of what you're doing, because you're sort of focused and targeted in that way. So think about something that your ideal audience wants. It used to be, especially for authors, that people would offer a short story or a chapter of a book or something like that as a lead magnet, and that did work a few years ago. But in recent years, what has come out of all this kind of like email marketing stuff is that people are really looking just for a quick win. They're not looking for something that will take them ages to read. I remember when my children were really small, they're still quite small, but when they were really small, and people would give me a book for Christmas, and I was like, what do I do with this? It was so frustrating because I never had time to read. I love reading, but I just didn't have time really at that stage to sit down with a book. And I always thought it would be much nicer if they gave me a book and an afternoon's babysitting to go with it, so I could actually read the damn book. But I couldn't. So it was like a noose around my neck, and it's horrible to feel that you're burdened with something when you're already really busy. And I think that's the case with internet, with email marketing, with websites, with blogs. There's so much out there. Like, the web is just saturated, and it's going to get more so. There's so much stuff out there, and people are so busy, and their minds are so sort of, there's just so much going on, isn't there? We're keeping tabs on so many different things that really your audience doesn't want something that's going to make them feel guilty for not reading it. They want a quick win. So between 1 and 4 pages, I've got 4 pages, that's really the maximum. You don't need 4 pages, 1 or 2 pages is fine. You want it beautifully designed. Doesn't have to be professionally designed, but just something that looks nice. And obviously, as I mentioned before, you're going to give it in exchange for an email address. And what this lead magnet does is it starts to build trust. It doesn't just get an email address off somebody. It actually starts to build trust, because what you're doing is you're giving somebody a free sample of what you can offer. So they're opening up the email, we hope, they're downloading whatever it is you sent them, and they're looking at it and they're thinking, oh, this is a really helpful resource. This is somebody I want to keep following. I want to keep opening their emails. I want to see what else they've got to offer. So some ideas for what you could offer. Some of you hopefully are I can't speak. Some of you are hopefully already starting to think of what you could offer, and some of you already have lead magnets set up. But here are some ideas. Checklists are very popular, 10 ways to do this, or 6 tips for this, or items you need in order to do this, that, or the other, ideas. Or a general printable. Prayers are very popular. If you're a Christian blogger or writer, offering a few prayers that people can download, print out, snip up and send to people, or keep in their Bible as bookmarks, that kind of thing. Maybe a 1-week devotion plan. You could fit that on 1 or 2 sides of A4, a very simple devotion plan with some Bible readings set out and a short reflection. If you write fiction, maybe you could kind of go along those lines and write some advice from one of your fictional characters, from a character in one of your books. I think that would be a really nice lead magnet. It could be a how-to guide, a pattern for something that you could make, or instructions for making something. Other ideas, especially if you're not a writer, a discount code for your shop works really, really well. I'm sure you've seen that before when you've been to websites, sort of new websites. They offer you 10% off, or free delivery, or whatever it is, in exchange for your email address. Something that some bloggers in particular like to offer is a 5-day challenge, which can be quite nice, and that can be a series of maybe 5 quick emails that you're going to send out every morning for 5 days, and they're going to involve tips or ideas. So especially if you're maybe like a wellness blogger or writer, maybe you blog about mental health, or blog about something to do with well-being, and 5-day challenges can be really effective, because you can just put in like a quick kind of 5-minute exercise every day, like today we're going to do 5 minutes and we're going to do this mindfulness exercise, or why don't you do this today for 5 minutes. Just quick wins for people. They know they're not going to be lumbered with something they're not going to be able to keep up, but they're just going to get these kind of quick snippets of practices that will be helpful to them. And again, it's building trust in you as somebody who knows what you're talking about, and somebody who's got something to offer them. You could also just offer a 10-minute help video in whatever it is you write about. I mean, not all of these are going to be relevant to all of you, right? But hopefully there's something that is relevant to you in terms of what you already do, what you write, or what you produce, what you make. The golden rule, though, with lead magnets is they must be connected to what you are offering or selling or doing long term. I love to cook. I love a good curry. I could offer 5 curry recipes as my lead magnet, and actually quite a few of my audience would enjoy that. But is it related to what I do? No, it's not really. I would end up with that offer, with that lead magnet, I would end up enticing people who were foodies, who were looking for regular recipes, who like curry, all those sorts of people. But they're not my ideal audience, even though there's some overlap. So you've got to offer something connected to what you are doing long term, because it starts to build trust. That's the point of a lead magnet. It's not just to collect an email address, it's to start building that relationship with your subscribers and get them to trust what you're offering. So all these questions here are super important to have a think through. Who is my ideal customer? What sort of person would be interested in what I do? What is that person looking for that I can offer them? What do they need? What are their interests? What design would appeal to them? All those kind of things are really, really important when you're thinking about what to offer your audience. I just thought I would show you my lead magnet as an example of what to do. I'm not a professional designer, not in the slightest, but I have quite a bit of experience now with Canva. So if you are keen to learn how to use Canva to create these kinds of lead magnets, then that Canva training is coming up in a couple of weeks' time. So do join me for that. I know some of you have booked on for that already. But I offer these 4 printables, and I call them the Family Faith Bundle. As I said, I'm a Christian parenting blogger, so I write a lot about faith in the home, discipleship of ourselves and our children. So these are 4 resources that are designed to just support parents and children in that. So we've got a family devotions planner. We've got, you can't really read it here, but a spiritual practices for time-starved parents, just a quick checklist. I told you I'd tell you about my mistakes. I haven't really. I've just told you about all the things I wish I'd done instead of made the mistakes. But here's a massive mistake I made. My first lead magnet was a PDF download called 15... So I can't remember, it had some like crazy long name, but it was basically 15 spiritual practices for exhausted parents, or ways that you can pursue God as an exhausted parent, something like that. And it was all right, and it got some positive feedback, but it wasn't really, it was just literally a Word document. It was really boring. It didn't look nice at all. And then, because I saw on someone else's website that they were offering 50 ways to do something, or 50 ideas for this, I thought, I really need to up my ante. So I went from 15, I didn't quite get to 50, I got to 35. So the irony of giving to an exhausted parent a document that says 35 ways that you can connect with God. I mean, you just feel tired reading that title, right? It's not very appealing if you're sleep deprived and you're dealing with a vomiting baby or whatever. So that was really not going to work super well. Unfortunately, at some point last year, I realised, and I took that off and I replaced it with this. So this spiritual practices document here for time-starved parents, that's basically a little bit of a kind of condensed version of my original lead magnet. Then I've got 4 prayers for tough days. I said that prayers were popular. These are always really popular. People comment on these. Just 4 quick prayers to pray if life is not going so well, and you can cut them up with these dotted lines, or you can just pin them up by your bed or whatever. People like those. And then this is like a kind of generic Bible study sheet, I suppose. It's questions to ask when reading the Bible, and you can use it as a parent, you can use it with an older child or a teenager, and you just pick a couple of questions and they'll apply to any passage pretty much. So that just gives you an idea of what I do. But as I said, 4 printables there is really the maximum. Don't do any more than that, and ideally less. I just can't. I mean, I have tried offering these individually, but the sign-up rate was virtually no different. It was slightly higher to offer all 4 of them together, which is why I do that now. Okay, so you've got your lead magnet, or you've got some ideas for what you might do with your lead magnet. The next thing we want is a welcome sequence. What is a welcome sequence? Why do I need it? A welcome sequence is simply a series of emails, usually 3 emails, that are sent a couple of days apart to new subscribers. It's all automated. This is not something you have to log onto your computer to do. This is something you can set up in any email service provider, an automated email campaign, so that all your new subscribers get thoroughly welcomed onto your list. And why you need one? Lots of reasons. Firstly, you need to deliver your freebie, your lead magnet, the thing that you've promised them. You need to have some way of delivering that, and it's going to come by email. Secondly, this is optional. You could give additional freebies. I've just set that up on my list actually, so they get the original freebie, but then in the second and third email they get another printable. It's just a simple 1 or 2 page printable that I happen to have anyway, but that just adds more value and gives your subscribers even more reason to want to keep opening your emails and keep following you. A welcome sequence also introduces yourself. So it's a good chance to share a few kind of basic details about who you are, so that when they get their first proper email, they're not going to be like, who is this person who's writing to me? So you're starting to build that relationship, starting to build that trust. And of course, it's really important to welcome that new subscriber, to let them know that they're really valued on your mailing list, that you're really pleased that they're here. And you can also use questions to invite engagement right from the start. And that's a great way to start building relationships with people, because they won't all reply, but some do. And I always make sure I reply, however short and however many weeks it might take me sometimes. I always make sure I reply to those emails, because no one wants to think that they've sent an email out into the ether and it's got lost, right? You want to know that you're valued and you've been heard. So yeah, I use questions like, what's your I think the main question I ask is, what's the, I think something like, what's your biggest challenge in parenting? And if you're not a parent, what's your biggest challenge in life right now? And people write back. Sometimes they write long emails introducing themselves in all sorts of ways, and sometimes it's just a line or 2, but I always reply, and that starts the 2-way relationship of a mailing list, which is really, really good long term. Just to briefly show you how you would set up a welcome list. So you would go into your dashboard for your email service provider. This is me on MailChimp again. And you go over here to create a little magic wand pencil thing. And then you get this pop-up window, but instead of selecting sign up form, which we did before, you will just simply select email. Design and send automated or regular emails to your contacts. So click email, and then you get to this little box in the top left hand corner. I've kind of got 4 screens in one here, so I hope you can follow it. So top left, you get to this little box that says create an email. So you can give it a campaign name. Do you see at the top where it says automated? That's what you're going to want to click on, automated. You do not want to be going onto your email service provider every time someone signs up and manually sending them an email. You want to automate this. Okay, and then you get to this page here, and you want to click on welcome new subscribers. And it says introduce yourself to people when they sign up for your audience, which is what you want to do. You'll then get to this screen here that says welcome new subscribers. And you want to click this one in the middle that says onboarding series. Okay, onboarding series. It might be called something different in ConvertKit or MailerLite. It might be called a welcome sequence, welcome series. But in any case, you want a series of emails. And then once you click that, you can click begin, welcome new subscribers, and you'll just be able to design your emails. And you can put your logo in, you can put images in like any email, and you can type your email, and then you can set when it sends to subscribers. So I have mine set to send immediately after they subscribe, 2 days later, and then 2 days after that. So they get an email on day 0, that's the one that delivers the lead magnet. They get an email on day 2 and day 4. And the first email basically just gives them the lead magnet. The second introduces me, and it links to 5 blog posts which tell them a bit more about me, but I also add a bit more information in the email. And then the third email introduces them a bit more to the blog and the concept of the blog and why I started it. So what the heck do I write in these emails? I've got my lead magnet, I've got my welcome sequence, I've welcomed everybody onto my email list, and shoot, what do I do now? What do I write? The first thing to say is you shouldn't just write your blog post. Don't just duplicate material that you have elsewhere. For several reasons. Firstly, because you want to encourage people to go to your blog to read that. You want to encourage traffic to your blog for various different reasons, which I won't go into here because we're not talking about that, page views or SEO or anything like that. But you want to attract people to your blog. So don't just reproduce the blog post. You could maybe put a few lines if you wanted to, like a first paragraph, and then read more here with a link to your blog post. That would be something that could be done in an email. But another reason that you don't want to just put your blog post in there is that you want to offer something extra to your subscribers. You want to really add value. So I take great pride in sending stuff to my subscribers on a Friday night that I don't put anywhere else. I don't put it in my blog posts, and I don't put it on social media. There's always something, some little detail or fact. Sometimes it's a longer anecdote, but there's always something on a Friday night that people don't get if they're just following me on Instagram or Facebook. And I think that's really important because it just, again, it builds that trust, and it lets your subscribers know that they are special. They're like the inner circle. They're getting a few sort of little tidbits into your life. But also, I think at the heart of it, most of us are quite nosy, aren't we? And we just want to know what other people are up to. So even if it's just what I watched on Netflix at the weekend, or a Zoom pub quiz that I'm going to, or whatever it is. Obviously life is not very exciting at the moment, so my emails are not filled with very exciting anecdotes. I went to Asda actually the other day in my slippers, so that was about the most exciting thing that's happened to me this year, and that went into my email. That's an example. It did actually go on Instagram, but I wrote a proper kind of little story for my email subscribers. So silly little things like that. If you trust your subscribers with this information, then they will return that trust to you. And when you come to the point when you are selling things, books, products, whatever you're selling, it's a lot easier to sell to people who trust you. Ultimately, we do want to buy from people and businesses that we trust, don't we? Not people who seem a bit shady or a bit unknown or not very legit. So we want to build that trust. I heard this phrase recently and I thought it was really, really, really important actually, and it stuck with me. Vulnerable but not a victim. I think it's a really good reminder to ourselves when we're sharing personal anecdotes, stories, whatever, in our emails and on social media, that we want to share vulnerably, we want to be open, we want to be honest, but not to the extent where we're sort of victimizing ourselves, because then all we'll get is sympathy. We won't necessarily get kind of followers or subscribers. So just have that in your mind, vulnerable but not a victim. Hopefully we've all got close friends and family members that we can, be that vulnerable with. But your email list is probably not the place to kind of expect that sort of relationship or that sort of support. So we're vulnerable, but we're not a victim. Obviously, you can put some details of the books, the resources, the products you're selling. That needs to go into your emails as well. Not all at once. Don't sort of overwhelm people, but maybe kind of switch it around. So I've got a children's book based on some women in the Bible, and it's International Women's Day next week. So at this time of year, I'm really promoting that. Once International Women's Day has been and gone, I'll probably promote one of my other products. So not everything all at once, even if everything's on sale all at once, but just kind of, just be careful with that and targeted. Obviously, you can run sales as well and discounts and offers on your email list, and that can be very effective too. You'll want to put some links to things you've written, blog posts and articles, or places you've been featured if you are a small business, or even if you're a speaker. Anything that you're involved with that your subscribers might be interested in, then definitely link to that. And you could also put in some recommendations or reviews of books or resources that are related to the topic that you write about, or the subject of your business. I suppose if you're a small business, you probably don't want to be sort of recommending too many of other people's resources, but if there's something maybe that complements your product that you found elsewhere, that could be something really good. And then I've said write regularly, even if just once a month. It's very, very important to write regularly. In the early days, another mistake I made was I didn't want to bother anyone. I don't know if anyone can relate to that. I didn't want to bother anyone with my email list. And I actually thought, I wouldn't have said this out loud, but I actually thought maybe if I don't write too often, then people will forget them on my email list and they won't unsubscribe. And that was my kind of sole motivation, really, for not writing very often. I just didn't want people to unsubscribe. It was the worst thing in the world. Whereas these days, I'm okay with unsubscribes, and I'll talk about that later. So what I did was I wrote it was so random. It might have been 4 weeks. It might have been 8 weeks. It was really, really random when I wrote to my email list. And by the time I got round to writing, because I wasn't really prioritising it, I'd get round to writing this email and there'd be so many things to put in it, so many blog posts, so many, at the time I was writing for another charity as well, so many links to articles I'd written for them, just like so many. And so basically the email was just like a list of links. And it was so long and so boring. Like, I don't know who opened those emails and why they did, because they were so dull. And so a few months into that, I thought, well, this isn't good. These emails are so long. I'm going to commit to writing every week on a Friday night. And I thought maybe it's going to be a bit too much. Maybe people will unsubscribe, but I'm just going to do it. And hopefully my emails will be shorter. And actually, if you're on my email list, some of you are, you'll know that the emails did not get shorter. If anything, they got longer. But the difference is the emails now have a lot more space in them to write reflections, to write anecdotes, to write kind of the fun stuff and the stuff that opens up, I suppose, the stuff that's honest and open about me, so that people get to know me more. So there's more space because they come every week. There's not so much to put in terms of links and updates elsewhere, so I can just kind of be me and add some sort of more friendly stuff. And people do say that getting my emails is like getting an email from a friend. And I'm always very touched when people say that, because that's how I write them. I write my emails as if I'm writing to friends. So you don't have to go for weekly. That's what I do. But I think at least once a month, maybe once a fortnight, whatever suits you. Monthly is honestly fine, but do put it in the diary. Do prioritise it. Do write regularly. The other advantage of writing regularly is that people come to expect your emails on a certain day at a certain time. So in terms of making sure people's emails don't end up in spam or promotions, they do, sadly, they just do. But at least if people are looking forward to receiving your email and they know roughly when it comes, they'll probably be looking out for it, and they'll probably be able to fish it out of spam and promotions. And the other thing I've noticed on that topic is that in my Gmail, I know not everyone has Gmail, but in my Gmail, it'll actually tell me, especially when I look on my phone, I think it happens on my laptop as well actually, in the promotions tab, it will give me like the first 2 or 3 people or businesses, companies who've sent me emails that have landed in promotions, and Gmail knows which ones I like to open, so it tends to show me the ones that I want to see. So that's really helpful. So I'm quite often going into my promotions folder and fishing emails out. So don't worry about your emails going into promotions. If people want to read them, they will find them and read them. Okay, so we're into the last phase now of our little kind of framework of getting this email list growing, and this is really looking at the long term. So how do I keep subscribers engaged? We're looking at not just the first few months of building and writing your first few emails, but some of us have been going with our email list for years now, and it might seem a bit dry. It might seem that people are not as engaged, or we're not really growing. So the first thing we're going to talk about is engagement. Firstly, it's obvious, isn't it? Write fun emails. Write emails that you would want to read, and hopefully other people would want to read them as well. Many of you are writers, but somehow when we write an email, we somehow feel we've got to go into like boring newsletter mode. But I don't know why we think that, because who wants to read something that's just called newsletter number 1, or newsletter 2, newsletter 3? There are very few people in my life whose emails I would open if they were entitled newsletter. I can tell you that. Like, I could count them on one hand. Some mission partner friends we have, that's about it, to be honest. Most people are going to have to entice me to open their emails. So give your emails an intriguing title, make them fun to read. One of the best open rates I've had recently, in the last year or so, I suppose, to my emails was, I think it was last May, and my husband and I had been hearing for quite a few weeks, possibly a couple of months, some scrabbling going up in the roof just above our bedroom. There was nothing in the loft, so we kind of worked out it must be some birds making a nest. Sort of, we couldn't see them. We couldn't see them when we were outside. We couldn't see them out our windows. They were totally out of sight. All we heard was this scrabbling, so it was quite magical. And then one morning, my husband was awoken early. I sleep through anything, so I wasn't. But my husband woke early to the sound of little cheep cheeps, and these little baby birds had been born, which was very exciting. And then when I woke up several hours later, he told me. And it was so exciting, it was so magical, because we couldn't see these birds, but we could hear them. And so I put that anecdote into my email because, it was May. I think we were still locked down. There wasn't much going on. And the title of the email was Our Bedroom Activity This Week. I have no idea what people thought they were going to read in that, but there you go. A bit of innuendo just to get people to open an email. Sometimes it works. It doesn't work for every audience, but my audience appreciate that. So that was it. Our bedroom activity this week. And obviously people were like, what? What's she going to say? And it was a story about birds. So yeah, intriguing titles. I turned 40 a couple of weeks ago, and I put some old pictures in my email, and the title was literally just, this is what I looked like when I was 10. And emails like that are going to get quite a few opens, because we're all nosy, aren't we? Well, I think most of us are. We want to know a bit about people's past, or what they look like, or how bad the haircut was, or whatever it was. So engage people with the title, engage people with the emails, tell fun stories, use all your ammunition really in your emails to make them really engaging. Ask questions as well. Encourage engagement, encourage people to write back to you by asking them questions. And as I said before, you can have giveaways, you can have sales, offers, discounts, all that kind of stuff is really good for engagement. It was asked before this session, a few people asked about giveaways. Are they a good way to grow your list? And I would say yes, but with caution, because giveaways are... they can grow your list, but they can also grow your list with people who don't actually really want to be on your list. So sometimes if you're giving away something that isn't really related to your target audience or what you do, then you may end up just attracting people who then later unsubscribe. And I also just don't think it's a great strategy to have on its own. I think in addition to other strategies to growing your list, it can be really, really useful. But yeah, I don't think it's good to rely on any one strategy. So they can be good. I've realised that that's on a future slide, but never mind. I've just told you now. And then, yeah, I wanted to say something about email open rate, because this was something that was asked before the session as well. People often say, only 50% of my subscribers are actually opening my emails. 50% is really good. Okay, the industry standard is something like, I don't know, 15, 17%, something like that. Like, people just don't open every email. It just doesn't happen. We don't open every email, do we, that we get? And, people don't. So please don't be put off if you think your email open rate is low. It probably isn't. I did ask around last week to kind of try and find out what was considered a good open rate these days, and it really depends on the number of subscribers. So if you've got 10 subscribers, then you would hope that most of them, if not all of them, would open your email. If you've got 100 subscribers, not so much, and 1,000, definitely not. But generally, over 30% is considered to be good. But again, just understand that open rate will go down as your number of subscribers increases. So aim for quite high if you're starting off. How do I find new subscribers? This is a really important one. Put sign-up forms, I've said this already, in as many places as possible on your website. I did say that when you start off, you just need a landing page. Don't worry about all those forms if that's confusing. But by the time you get to this stage, when you're really wanting to grow the number of subscribers, put those forms in everywhere you can on your website, okay? It doesn't get dull. People will just close them if they're annoying. So it doesn't get dull. You can have 3 forms on your website and it's absolutely fine. You can also put a direct link on your social media. You could schedule some posts out on your Facebook page or Twitter or whatever you schedule in advance, and just have the link and say, look, you can get my free this, that or the other, and do it that way. You can also, if you've got a Facebook page, you can edit the sign up button so that can link to your mailing list. So that's a really good thing to set up as well. If you use Instagram, you can put a link in your bio, again advertising the freebie that you're giving away. I've talked about giveaways already. Yes, you can use them in moderation. I used to use them all the time for growing my list, and then I stopped for various reasons, and not just because I didn't think they were the best way of growing my list. But yeah, I found that sometimes people who came in through a giveaway weren't that engaged, and there were a few reasons, that most of which weren't actually really to do with mailing lists. They're more to do with how I wanted to run giveaways in the future. But I really think that if your main strategy is having this lead magnet, then you are going to attract people who like what you do because they've opted in to get something that you've produced. And I would also say, however big your list grows, don't ignore the one person who gets in touch to say how much they enjoyed your book, or the one person who always comes and buys your products at a sale. Don't ignore that one person. Don't be afraid of personally giving your sign up link to anybody who shows an interest. It's really, really important to do that. It might just be one person, but it might be one person who's going to become a very loyal customer of yours, a loyal reader of your blog or your books. It might be somebody who's going to order 15 copies of your book for their church group or something. So don't ignore the one. Always say to people, if they give you nice feedback on something you've done, thank you very much. Do you get my emails? Would you like to get my emails? Here's a link if you do. Events, I know we're not really doing many events at the moment. Well, they're online, aren't they? Any events that we might be doing. But when we go back to doing physical events, do have a device ready for people to sign up to your list. I think that's really important. For GDPR, I would advise against getting a paper sign-up list, just because people have to give their own consent. So you have to have the wording on that paper form that indicates that those people have consented to you signing them up on their behalf. But then you've got to keep that paper form, and personally I would just be worried about losing it. You basically have to have evidence that people have signed up of their own will, and you haven't just signed them up on their behalf without any consent from them. So I would always, if possible, have a tablet or a laptop set up with your mailing list so that people can sign themselves up. That's a lot of much safer way of doing it. And then put the link in your email signature as well. A really simple thing, but it just shows people what you're doing, what you're about. Even if they don't sign up, at least they know what you're doing and what you're offering. But I would definitely put it in your email signature if you haven't already got it. And last but not least, what about the unsubscribes? I used to just hate it when people unsubscribed from my list. I just couldn't cope at all. I remember one of my friends unsubscribed and I was like, oh no, what have I done to upset him? I must have said something, I must have done something. Oh dear, what's going on? What have I done? And of course I'd done nothing at all. But my friend is a single childless man, and my target audience is a married woman with children. So it's kind of a no-brainer. He probably didn't want to get parenting emails every week, and who could blame him? But, you know, he buys my books. I hadn't done anything to upset him. We're still in touch. Our friendship is intact. So, you know, don't worry about your unsubscribes. In fact, recently I attended some training where they said celebrate your unsubscribes. You know, actually don't be negative about them, but be positive, because every unsubscribe is getting you closer to this curated list of people who are like-minded, who like what you have to offer. It's getting you closer to this community who are going to be really loyal to the sort of things that you're producing, the sort of things you're selling. Also, if you're above the limit for free subscribers, it's less to pay. So you don't really want people hanging around who aren't going to be bothered about your emails. You'd rather they unsubscribe, and it will improve your open rate as well. So let's just throw off any personal emotional response to the unsubscribes, and remember that actually what we're interested in more is the people who do subscribe, and the people who become loyal followers, loyal customers, like-minded people, part of a community that we're building through our email list. I've got no idea of the time. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm way over time. Right, just in summary then, think, start, build, grow. Hopefully you've seen where you are on that list, on that kind of framework, and you've got a few things that you can be thinking about. As I said, this is a recording, this is being recorded, and I will give you the recording so you can watch it back any time to work out where you are and what the next steps are.